Hey, what's up? It's Comic95 the Savior, and for this video, I want to talk about 20 things that are 20 of the most difficult things for foreigners in Japan, or I guess I should say specifically for myself. 20 of the hardest things that I find about living here in Japan as a foreigner. This is not meant to be depressing or sad, but I guess it kind of is. Keep in mind that these are all really technically first world problems. Things could definitely be much worse, but I'm talking about my own thoughts and feelings about being here as someone that, well, is not Japanese basically. I chose to live here. I obviously love Japan, that's why I'm here. I don't hate this country, but of course there are tons of problems that come with living in Japan. Japan is not perfect. It is a first world country, and thus, with that said, is definitely up for being criticized. People can criticize the US. I can critique and criticize Japan. My country's not perfect. Japan's not perfect. There are problems that are specific to me as a foreigner, and there are some things that are specific to Japanese people in general, but this is the norm for them, so they don't know that something's wrong with it necessarily because it's all they've ever known. So I'm not going to get into an argument with you on what you think what you think about Japan doing these things or having things set up this way, but rather I'm telling you how it affects me as a foreigner. So my last thing that I want to say, I also want to comment on the fact that I'm speaking from my own personal experiences being here. So different people, as I think I kind of said earlier, will have different experiences. One thing that affects me might not be bothersome to you. And I'm also not going to spend 10 minutes on each topic, but for each topic I could definitely go much deeper. So do keep in mind that there will be some bits and pieces missed and left out. So it might be like, why is that a problem, or why is that hard? Isn't this everywhere? And it's like, no, there's more to it. But again, to keep the video from being 3 hours long, we're going to keep it at 1 hour. I'm not gonna talk for too long on each individual thing. There's already like 20 points. So let's get going. Number 1, having to go through life knowing that you'll always be illiterate. No matter how well you can speak Japanese, no matter how much kanji you learn, you'll never be able to learn all of it. And even if you are someone that does learn how to read, you'll never be able to write. And if you do know how to read and write, you'll never be able to speak perfectly. And that goes for people that have passed the JLPT as well. I think a lot of people don't understand that test is simply that. It's a proficiency test to kind of gauge how much Japanese understanding that you do have. But just like how taking the TOEIC test and getting a high score on that or passing Aiken doesn't make you a good English speaker, the same thing goes for the JLPT. So yeah, it's really weird knowing that no matter how long I stay here, I'll never be at that level. For example, I studied Spanish for years, and excuse me, I'm a little sick, but I was able to read in Spanish. I can write in Spanish. I can remember how to spell things in Japanese, even if I know how to spell a word, because Japanese is 100% phonetic, similar to how Spanish is too, kind of. With that said, even although I know how to spell things in hiragana and, romanji, etc., I'll never be able to, remember the exact kanji characters for it. I will never be able to write things this way. And even that, it's a really weird system where you have to memorize what characters have kanji for them and which ones don't. Which ones are acceptable to write in hiragana for business and which ones seem childish to do that. So there's a lot to it, and of course writing hiragana characters or katakana for everything, it drags out words too, so it looks really stupid if that's all you can do. And again, like even remembering stroke order, etc., there's so much more. We spend forever learning the 26 letters of the alphabet. Japanese people, spend forever and ever learning all of their, kana characters, and on top of that, kanji. You'll never be able to write it all. And as an American, it's super weird, because it's like, no matter how much I do, you'll never be perfect at that. If I want to master English or Spanish, I can do that, but I can't do that for Japanese. I'll always have to be reliant on other people for certain things. Number 2, not being able to fully express myself neither in Japanese or English. If I speak in Japanese, it normally just becomes weird. Either what I'm saying comes off a lot harsher than I want it to, or not as harsh as I need it to. For example, if I'm angry. Same thing goes for expressing things like love and happiness. It's not as easy to properly, natively express the way that you feel. Because one, Japanese has very limited words for expressing happiness and love, as well as sadness and anger. There's a lot of words that don't exist. For example, there aren't a formal list of curse words even, which you shouldn't be saying that anyway, but same thing goes for like loving and liking and thinking that things are cool and cute and beautiful. There's literally like 2 or 3 words for things. There aren't a lot of added on words. They don't have a ton of adjectives to describe feelings or the way that things are, like how English does. Thus, generally when you're speaking, you say everything the exact same way. Like there aren't a lot of variations in it, which can be okay for some things, but it can take away the feeling that you really have if your first language is English. You kind of feel like you're losing what you really want to say. It doesn't come off the way you want it to. The other problem is if you do get upset or you do feel sad or you do feel happy or whatever, but especially in a situation where you're being treated wrong or misunderstood, you can't resort to using English. It happens to me naturally. If I get angry, I will go back to using English. But the problem is, of course, this is helping you even less because now they really can't understand what you want to say. Even if they clearly see that you're angry, both by your attitude and your choice of words, excuse my chair, they definitely will not fully understand what you're saying because of the language barrier, the difference. So yeah, it just feels really weird not being able to properly express myself. And I'm not just talking about like out in public, but even with my friends, even with my boyfriend, whatever the case might be, I just feel like I'm never understood. It's like being a pet or something, like you're an animal and everyone around you is speaking a foreign language and you're talking to them and you understand them, but it's like, no, you don't understand me. So it's really, really aggravating. It drives me crazy. Number 3, not having comfort food or AKA American food. There are some places here that help, fix that a little bit, but let's be real. All of the places here that exist in Japan that serve black people food, I hate to put them on blast, but let's just be real. All of them, their food is mediocre or trash, and mediocre at best, really. It's good because we don't have other things to compare it to, but it's overpriced, it's not good, and they're really just ripping you off to make a profit, understandably. But with that said, it's like there's a lot of things that you can't get here. There's lots of places that I miss. I miss going to Panda Express, I miss Portillo's, I miss Giordano's, I miss Chick-fil-A. I miss so many places. I miss IHOP. I miss Denny's. Like, there's a lot of stuff they do have here in Japan, but like even places like Denny's and Wendy's and whatever, like the menu is totally different. It's not the same. So again, like when you do crave and miss American food, which for me happens pretty often, you don't really have that fix here, and it kind of sucks, especially when you're having a bad day, because even the American takes, that they have here, the American restaurants, they don't really taste good. And pans. And Japan's idea of America is, hamburgers. And it's like, guys, we eat more than just burgers. That would be the equivalent of in the US just saying, ramen. And when I say ramen, I mean like the ramen that comes inside of those 25-cent packs. So yeah, it just really sucks not having comfort food anymore. Number 4, not being able to vent to my family and friends. Well, of course I can call them up. There's a time difference. So generally speaking, if you go through a bad day, something wrong happens, whatever, you're reliant on pretty much waiting for them to wake up, or you kind of have to just hold it in, or in my case, make a YouTube video on it when I do it sometimes, because there's a lot I'll never tell anyone. But with that said, yeah, like you can't really talk to Japanese people the way that you would talk to people like in the US, etc. So with that said, if you do want to like really vent or had a really bad day, you want to talk to your family and friends, you can't just go to their house anymore. You can't just pick up the phone and call them most of the time. They're going to be busy. You're not going to jump on a plane to go back home because you had one bad day. Some people do. I actually have friends that have left here because of that, but that's another story. It's just not going to be me. But it does suck because at times you do wish that you could, see your family. You do wish that you could talk to your friends from the US if you have any. And yeah, it sucks not being able to do that anymore. Number 5, having to represent my country, my race, and my gender. Oh my God, I cannot stand that. As a Black American woman, anything that I do is seen as, foreigners, Black people, foreign women, Americans. So I generally try to follow the rules and do things the right way, but I'm human, I make mistakes, I do the bad or wrong things on purpose sometimes. It happens. And with that said, when I do mess up, it's never just taken as, oh, this person made a mistake, or oh, this person did something bad. It's just her. It becomes everyone. I don't like something, all foreigners don't like. I like something, all foreigners like this. I look a certain way, all black people. And so I can't stand that, because while there are good things that can come from that, like I think for the most part, I try to represent my race, my country, foreign women properly by acting appropriately. Unfortunately, there are also times when that is not the case, and that is how it's taken. You're seen as a stereotype. You're looked at underneath a magnifying glass. All of your mistakes, everything you do wrong is judged, and it's all, oh, it's because you're American. Oh, it's because you're a foreigner, etc. And it really sucks. There's a ton of pressure with that. Honestly, I'm kind of used to this from being in the US as a black woman. It's always assumed that I am angry, I want to fight you, I have all of these negative whatever type stereotypes. Even the way that I talk, people are impressed with mediocrity, basically, doing the bare minimum, not naturally speaking with ebonics. Like, people think that I'm putting on, how can I put it, I forget what they call it, like code switching. Like, I don't have to code switch. It's how I naturally talk. Everyone doesn't speak that way. My parents spoke properly, so I speak properly. So if that makes me an Oreo, whatever, so be it. But in Japan, they don't have so much of that stereotype about black people, and it's not so much I'm looked at as a black person. In Japan, I'm seen as an American. You don't even call yourself black here or refer to yourself as, really being African American. You're just American. And if they want to break it down further, then fine, I'm black. But again, it's a really weird dynamic, because in one sense, you are representing your entire country, but then on the flip side of it, you're also kind of representing black people too. So I hate that. I don't like that. I feel like I can't make mistakes or have to be worried about what I do, etc. Because the other issue is it becomes an ongoing thing. You make one person think this bad thing about you, and now they go and tell their friends. Not everybody feels this way about you. And there's even problems with that outside of just black people, like with Asians and white people too. So again, the stereotypes about Americans mostly come from other white people being here, not me. But again, it's weird because I kind of fall into 3 different categories. Foreign women are not seen here as often as men. And again, black people, especially black women, is pretty rare here. And on top of that, just being black in general. So it's weird. Number 6, similar to what I just said, dealing with racism. I feel like Japanese people can't fully understand racism because they kind of grow up with it, like on a natural way. Like, it's not like in the US people run around like, saying the N-word, etc. But here in Japan, they've been preconditioned and taught that they're better than everybody else. Like, they believe that they are superior to other Asians. And no, a Japanese person will almost never directly say that to you. They'll deny it. But if you listen to how people talk, go through a history class, see how they speak. Look at how the news articles are even written or what they talk about. Anytime that another Asian country tries to accuse Japan of doing something or talks about something negatively, it gets shut down. Anytime something bad happens, if anybody is involved that is Chinese, from the Philippines, whatever, it quickly becomes all Chinese people, all Filipinos, all Koreans, etc. And so while normally people don't associate things that way with you in particular, they are definitely aware of, stereotypes, etc. So I told you guys a while ago that I literally had a doctor that told me that he was willing to do a payment plan for me because I didn't have health insurance because I wasn't basic. He told me directly because I wasn't Chinese or Korean. And he told me about the scam of, them coming to Japan and getting medical work done and then going back to their home country to avoid paying the medical bill. So there's crazy things like that. I had a landlord that accused Chinese people and Koreans of ruining the Chinatown area. There was some barbecue place in Kobe, so not getting into that. Excuse me. But my point is basically, like racism. Like, people don't understand the racist stuff that Japanese people say or do, and everything kind of gets excused. Like, people think racism is an exclusive thing that only happens between black and white people in the US, or between, white people and whatever, just outside of Japan. They don't think that Japanese people are capable of really being racist. They just don't see it. This also goes into interactions with people. If I make a Japanese person angry, one of the first things that come to some people's mind is, oh, that this person is, you know, a nigger, or you're a gorilla, or you're whatever. Like, it instantly becomes a racist battle. And I can go through this in the US too, especially with y'all colonizers. But that's another story. But yeah, like, it's really, like, hurtful. And it's a weird experience to have to deal with, especially being here in Asia. It's weird seeing Asians be the majority, which they've always been. The majority of the world is Asian. So yeah, like, it's really, it's weird. It's hurtful. It sucks that people don't understand it, because, like, at least in the US we have laws and things to protect us, but in Japan people can avoid hiring you or renting to you or just servicing you simply because of your race. It's legal here. They claim that it's not, but what is the police going to do if you call the police on them and say, oh, this person won't let me into their bar? You think the police are going to be like, sir, you have to serve them or we're going to shut this bar down? No. You call the police because they won't rent to you? No. People have the right to choose who they rent to, even if it is based on your race. It's totally legal here. It's like living in, like, the 40s or 30s or something. It's really strange. And similar to number 7, dealing with sexism. The amount of times I've had guys say really sexist, crazy things to me is ridiculous. I've had it happen both on dates with friends, etc. I told you guys I went on a date with a guy who literally laughed at me because I asked him if he knew how to cook. And I was just asking him because he asked me if I knew how to cook. And he was like, no, I'm a guy. Like, of course I don't. And so it wasn't like in a joking way, like, it was like a serious way, like, oh, you silly foreigner. Like, of course I don't cook. I'm a Japanese man. So that's on the lighter end of things, but I've literally been requested to do stuff because I was a woman, from doing cleaning tasks to serving people tea, you know, just all kind of little stuff to help them with the children because I'm a girl in a circumstance, you know, in the setting at the school. So yeah, it really, it's offensive. It sucks. And it's also kind of hurtful too, like hearing people say like crazy stuff and making assumptions based solely on the fact that you're a girl. And I'm not somebody that's totally against gender roles either. It's just, there's a way that you talk about them. For example, I understand why people want to be stay-at-home moms. I'm attracted to that in one sense. I just personally prefer to work. But it's totally different if someone's telling you you don't belong anywhere outside of the kitchen, you know, you whore or whatever type thing. That's a whole nother story. So yeah, it's weird hearing people, you know, say sexist things, and even worse than racism in that sense. At least in racism, if you say something directly that's racist, people understand that it's racist. But in Japan, if you say something sexist, people don't see anything wrong with it. It's like, well, yeah, it's true. Number 8. This is one of my big ones, but not having enough space for anything. No space, no storage. I can never, like, have this. Like, for example, what you see right behind me. This is my work from home area right here. I literally had to take up the little bit of wall space that I had for my dining room table to make a classroom wall. And of course, I'm not going to take this down every day, so it just stays there. I have nobody to impress. I live by myself, so I don't really care. But at the same time, if I lived in the US, this would be an office area. I literally have my office chair I dragged from that side of the room to over here, and I'm using my dining table that I'm sitting at right now to talk to you guys, and that I'm working from, because I could move my computer desk, but then it looks weird being right here in front of my door, and then it's in the middle of the floor, and it just doesn't work out right. I can't buy the clothes that I want to. I see clothes all the time that I want, and I normally buy them. And you want to know what happens when I buy them? Like right now, I don't have enough space to store them. So over time, I end up having to throw them away, give them away, or send them back to the US. Simple as that. Aside from that, I have to give up on a lot of my hobbies. I used to really like collecting old like figurines, etc. I was super obsessed with things like Inuyasha, Sailor Moon, Ranma, Nana, things like that. But now I don't have space for that. So when I see something that I like, I have to just admire, be like, oh my god, this is so cool. But I don't have enough space to put that in my closet, or I don't have enough space to put that on the shelf. So you really have to rely on like just random wall storage, etc., which you don't get a lot of cabinets or closet space. I don't even have enough room to store my suitcase, you guys. So yeah, it just really sucks not having, you know, just a decent amount of space, not having separate rooms for your living room and dining room. And sure, you can get places that have this, but then you're living in a much older, crappier house where the insulation is even worse. You have more bugs, the air doesn't stay in, your AC unit is super old and dirty, and there's just all type of crap you have to deal with. Your bathroom has issues. there's just so much stuff. So you have to sacrifice in order to be here. You don't have the space that you're used to having. Number 9, there are no US style holidays. This is one of the weirdest things to get used to, but it was kind of easy for me because my family is so dysfunctional and messed up. I never really celebrated Christmas or Thanksgiving or New Year or the 4th of July. Like, for me, holidays were me awkwardly being uninvited to, you know, my extended family, but being forced to go to events that my dad or mom just invited themselves to. We never really did Thanksgiving or any type of holiday gatherings. It was always just us at home. Hardly got any gifts. Hardly really ate much of any food. There was never anything special to really look forward to. And with that said, I still have always been somebody that really, really loved holidays, and I appreciated the little bit that we did do. So I used to get excited for that. And in Japan, there is no more of that. Almost every holiday that exists here is really oriented around children. So if you don't have kids, there's nothing for you to do, nothing for you to look forward to. Even holidays like Christmas, they're not really celebrated. People celebrate it the day before, and it's really just a fancy date night and day to go look at the lights with your boyfriend or girlfriend. It's not really a day to buy gifts, have a big fancy dinner. People literally eat KFC, and KFC Japan is horrible, but that's another story. Yeah, it feels weird not having real holidays. It almost feels like I'm in prison at times between not having the food, not having holidays. So yeah, there's literally no holiday. New Year gets the closest to what it's like in the US, and even Halloween, but Halloween is literally just an excuse for girls to dress like sluts and for guys to try to date rape people to fulfill their fetish of fucking a cosplayer. So, or their favorite waifu, basically. And I'm not even exaggerating, guys. This is real. So, yeah. Number 10, having to walk everywhere. I hate to say that because that sounds super stereotypical American, lazy bones, whatever. But no, it's real. It really sucks. Because we have to walk everywhere, there's a lot of things that you can't do. For example, I can never buy everything that I need at the same time because then I have to carry it all in my hands to get home. So if I do want to go to the grocery store, I have to wear a backpack, bring multiple bags with me, and then I have to lug all of that stuff home. And this really sucks if your grocery store is not, within about a 5-minute walk from your place. If your store is 10, 15, 20 minutes away, like most people, oh my god, this sucks, because now you have to carry all of that crap by yourself, especially if you don't know how to ride a bike, or if you don't have a bike or a car. So yeah, of course you can buy some things online, but for most things it's easier to just buy it in store in person, and it can be cheaper depending on what it is. But it really sucks just having to walk everywhere. And it's not just grocery shopping, but just things in general. Sometimes the place isn't far away, but it's really cold, and you'd much rather jump into a car, only get out for a couple of seconds, and then get back in. Or maybe you want to go to the store and you can carry those things, but maybe you needed to go to 2 or 3 different stores. Well, I don't want to have to go into, the pharmacy with, 5 bags from the grocery store. So yeah, it just really sucks. Number 11, having a low salary. While it is definitely enough to live off of, as I said, and more than enough to live off of, I should say, you do feel cheated because especially as a teacher, you can get paid at least double, if not several $1,000s more per year. If you are working in the US versus being here in Japan, it's the price that we pay. We're not here to get rich, but still it does suck knowing that you can make more money and that you're not really being appreciated for the work that you do. You're getting, underpaid. They're cheating you. They're ripping you off. And again, in actuality, you're making a lot of money by Japanese standards, especially for you to have not been working at the same company for a long time. That's more than people's starting salary. But at the same time, you realize that, you would get more than that for a starting salary in the US just working at public school. Or shall I say working at a public school in the US, you would make more money doing that. The average salary in the US is I think around 58 or 60,000 something dollars for one person. In Japan, the average person makes half of that, if not less, per year. And that's with a degree. Number 12, as I've talked about before, the difficulty with making genuine friends. A lot of people are just looking for a language exchange, just want to have sex, or just want a boyfriend or girlfriend. It's hard to find real friends here. It's not impossible, but it's definitely significantly harder to find genuine, real friends, not associates, not boyfriend, girlfriends, fuck buddies, language exchange partners, but it's hard to find real friends, much harder than it is in the US. Number 13, not being able to make mistakes. This goes for being in the workplace, your friendships, your relationships, boyfriend, girlfriend style, your neighbors. Everything you have to be perfect. If you piss off people with anything, you say something they don't like, you wear something that they don't like, you smell a certain way. Anything you do is enough to make somebody say, I never want to see you again. I never want to work with you again. I'm done with you. I cannot tell you how many times I've lost friends, have lost jobs, etc. just from people deciding like instantly I did one thing that they don't like, we're through. So yeah, Japanese people are good at holding grudges. They're not very forgiving or understanding. Everything's about themselves. Everything is shaming people and not taking chances. It's like everybody in this country is hurt and holding on to something. People normally aren't willing to take chances with you. So, for example, if you get into an argument with your boyfriend, they're done. You tell your boss how you feel about something nicely, like how I had, and they disagree with you, you're done. I literally lost a job, made a video about this before, simply because I told my employer that I didn't think it made sense for two things I said. I didn't think it made sense for junior high students to be in this class taking, lessons at a high school level when they can't understand basic kindergarten questions. The student that I had didn't understand how are you, how old are you. We used her textbook and it was a listening activity, the only activity she had for the day. Even after I played it with subtitles, she couldn't understand the order. It had like not a multiple choice, but we're supposed to write like numbers 1 through 10, which order of events, like what happened when. And she couldn't get it. So I had to get to the point where I just gave her the answers. And I continued teaching the class, but afterwards I told him. I also told him that it was hard for me to, assign homework because half of my class had one textbook and then there were other students that had another textbook. And it's like, you shouldn't have a workbook for in class that's teaching you vocabulary and sentence structure and then have a phonics book that you're taking home. Why do some people have a phonics book and others have the workbook that goes together with the student book that they have? So it was just really confusing. And I said everything super nicely. I explained it to him and he fired me over that. So of course he didn't say that, but he said that he felt like, I wasn't really a good fit and that I forgot his exact words. So basically he felt like I would be problematic to work with, basically, because I seemed really upset is how he put it. So whatever, but it's not just with work, it's with friends, relationships, everything. You cannot make people upset. You can't step on their toes. You have to be perfect, make everybody happy, keep them happy. Because the moment you make them upset, you are either going to have to, bow down and beg for forgiveness and hope that they change their mind, or you're simply going to have to accept the fact that they hate you forever and there's nothing you can do to change their mind, which is normally what will happen even if you beg and bow for forgiveness. It's just Japanese culture. It sucks. Number 14, not being able to wear the clothes that I want to. Now, don't get me wrong, it's nice to dress conservative. You should be. And I myself, I am a Christian. I should be dressing properly. But let's be real, especially as an American, we wear much more revealing clothes when it's not a big deal. For example, in Japan, when I do like just this, my boyfriend does not like that. He prefers that I zip up my hoodie, just a little bit. This is okay. But once you start getting like down to even here, and look, you can't see anything. You can't even see like the line from my breast. There's no cleavage. I don't have it down like that or something. Like they do not. No. You can't do that. No V-necks, no backless dresses, no halters, no crop tops, no short skirts, etc. You can't wear that stuff here. I know some people think that you can, but honestly, you cannot. If you wear many things, etc., it's seen as slutty, especially if you are someone that has curves. When I say curves, I don't necessarily mean obese or fat, whatever. I just mean like you're busty, you have a booty. If you have breasts or ass, you are going to be seen as a prostitute. Even if you're thin, because you're a foreigner, what you're wearing is too sexy. So it sucks. You can't show your legs, and you can't show your arms or your back. Or your little clavicle, whatever you got going on up here. So... excuse me. It just really sucks. You can't wear what you want to. And it's really stupid because you see stores here all the time selling stuff that looks just like American clothing, but you never see people wearing it though. So it's like, why do y'all sell this stuff if wearing it makes it look like a whore? And nobody wants to wear it because they don't want to be seen as a whore. But okay, we're not gonna go there. So long story short, not being able to wear the clothing that I would like to wear personally. Number 15, having loose laws. There's a lot of things that Japanese people can legally do because of the law, it allows it, but you as a foreigner, you simply can't do. The police are super crooked here and are definitely in favor of Japanese people. And it's not a black versus Japanese thing, I promise you. I literally remember reading a news article and this guy had even commented. He was a white guy, blonde hair, blue eyes, and he was handsome. He actually got hit by a car and had it on video. He videotaped the truck driving off. He got the license plate and everything. And even though he had the clear license plate, wrote down the number, everything, and had proof and witnesses, both Japanese and foreigners, that saw the event take place, the police claimed they couldn't find the person. The guy was never charged, never got a ticket, No settlement, no nothing. Of course, the guy is fine. He's living, he's alive, but he did have to go to the hospital. And it's like, what? I even had cases like that. I literally had a situation where a guy had like basically tried to break into my apartment and was harassing me. And I called the police, and the police, well, you know, they weren't doing anything bad to me per se. They were more worried about running my visa to see if I was legally living in Japan and checking out to see if I was really a student. And I'm like, what? He's the one on my property. He's the one making a scene. This is my house. I live here. So you have situations like that. And then even like as far as like legal issues like with leases and contracts, etc., your landlord can get away with not abiding by things that you legally sign on a lease saying that this is okay, simply because, you know, you're a foreigner and they're Japanese. Same thing goes with, you know, your rights for anything. So it's actually kind of scary. I know Japan is a first world country and I mostly feel safe, but they don't have the same rights that we do, that they need, that we do, when it comes to going to jail. They can legally arrest you without even like having clear reason, and you can go a long time without ever speaking or seeing anyone. It's kind of messed up how they handle things here. So yeah, it's just really scary knowing that if you are ever really in trouble or someone ever really does do you wrong, you're better off trying to work it out with the person than involving the police. And if you are ever caught in a situation where you do something violent, it can get your visa actually revoked and you can get banned from Japan. So if you do ever get into a situation where you have to fight or anything like that, you're better off getting the crap beat out of you and doing nothing than hitting back, even in self-defense, because you're going to have a hard time proving that this person didn't provoke you and hit you first. So it's literally like being a black person again. Back in the 40s or 50s. You're like a second-class citizen to the Japanese. The police here are nice and friendly. I've never had any legitimate bad situation with them. Every time I've talked to the police, it was because either, you know, I called them or someone else. There's never been a case where I got ID'd or carded. I don't have to worry about those things. I know it can happen. I'm just telling you my own experience. But at the same time, I feel like when I have had to interact with them, there was clear bias in favor of the Japanese person, where they were more concerned about either being nosy and seeing where I'm from and why I'm here, than actually trying to protect me, make sure that I'm okay. It's just kind of like, oh, shogunai, you know, it happens, whatever. And it's like, so you're not going to help me? Okay. It's just really weird. Number 16, having limited career choices. While there are other jobs to do here besides teaching, you're pretty much just stuck between either being a teacher, translation work, being an engineer, working for some IT company, or doing something customer service related. You can't really get into other fields unless you want to be like a nurse aide or something. All those other jobs are super, super rare to get your hands on. It's possible to do something else like be a doctor, be a nurse, whatever, but it requires so much stuff. It's very unlikely for you to move over into another field, even if you are qualified for it. For example, right now, I'm actually working on a bachelor's in nursing at the moment, but I know that realistically it is very unlikely that I will ever become an actual RN here in Japan. But again, it's something that I want to have. I might choose to go back to the US someday, who knows? And I really just want the skill and to be able to add it to my resume and say that I am licensed and legally capable of doing this work, basically. But yeah, it just sucks knowing that I can't really expand and go out and branch out to another field, even if I wanted to. I love teaching. I've always wanted to be a teacher since I was a little kid. But again, it just feels weird knowing that this is all I can do. It's strange. Number 17, expensive groceries. So again, not to contradict what I've said in previous videos, generally speaking, it's not expensive to live in Japan, depending on what you eat and where you go, but some things are really expensive, and at least it's expensive in comparison to the US. For example, things like rice, bread, milk, etc. It's actually pretty costly here considering how little you get, but if you compare it by what Japanese people eat, then it's actually the same price, if not cheaper, in Japan. So again, it just feels weird having to pay more for things. Like, for example, things like strawberries, grapes, etc. They're way more than what they cost in the US. They start at normally around $8 to $10 for things like that. Can you get it cheaper? Yes. I've most certainly bought strawberries for like $3.58, $4.58, etc. But generally speaking, things like that, grapes, you're going to either get less or the same amount, but it costs way more for what you're getting. Even things like bananas, like everything just simply costs more. Rice, you can buy like a whole bag of rice for like $4 or $5 in the US. In Japan, typically the cheapest bag you can buy is, I think, about $8. I've definitely come across like a $5 or $6 bag before though, but Yeah, you generally get less for what you're paying for. Cheap meals like peanut butter and jelly are actually very expensive. If you buy the little $2 containers of those, they're so tiny. They can't make a ton of sandwiches like how you can in the US. In America, I can buy a jar of peanut butter and jelly for, less than $2 a piece, and I can make several sandwiches with them. I can make enough sandwiches for at least maybe a couple of weeks or even a month or something. In Japan, those little jars and containers you get, if you made a sandwich for every meal, I think they would probably be done in maybe like 3 or 4 days at best. Like, they don't last long at all, and they don't taste good. So yeah, it just really sucks. Number 18, lack of appliances. Even if you want to go out and buy appliances for your house, there often isn't enough space or hookups. For example, while I do have a bigger apartment than most people and a nicer apartment than most people, I don't have any space to have a dryer inside of my house. I don't have space for an oven inside of my house. So yeah, there's things that I just can't get. And then even as far as the stove goes, I live inside of a luxury apartment, so mine does come with 2 gas burners. But normal people don't have a stove at all, and when they do have a stove, it's almost always some old electric stove or some like little IC, whatever the little like electronic thing is that you plug into the wall. It's almost always one of those, and those are just as good too, don't get me wrong. I personally prefer the taste of using the gas stove. I feel like the flavor is different. But yeah, like there's just little things like that that really suck that you don't have. Having to go out to do laundry because you have to go out in the freezing cold to hang your clothes to dry, which also takes longer. And then in the summertime, you have to worry about, bees getting into your house, open up the door, etc. So it just really sucks not having a dryer. Like if you're running late for work and you wanted to quickly wash some clothes, nope. If you want to do that, you have to use your blow dryer to get your things dry. And again, it really sucks. It's just not practical. And it's like, how can a country that makes all of these electronics is so futuristic, how do y'all not have like things like a dishwasher? You don't have, a dryer to go together with your washing machine. So again, you can go to a laundromat, but who wants to go to a laundromat, guys? It's 2020. You do it when you have to, but when you have your own place and you can afford to buy a dryer, it would be nice to have a dryer, but there's no space for a dryer and there's no space for a dishwasher. And I'm someone that never like solely relies on the dishwasher. I always prefer to wash my own dishes, but I like using the dishwasher as like my pre-wash, and then I just kind of rinse it off before I eat off of it type thing. So yeah, I don't know. I had to get used to it. And then that's another thing too. I should have added to my storage room, but you don't even have a separate area to like really store your dishes. It's kind of like just thrown together with the rest of where your groceries go and where your cleaning supplies goes. Like everything's just kind of together. And that's if you're lucky enough to even have a cabinet, because not all houses have cabinets either. So yeah. Number 19, crowds being everywhere year round. I'm someone that likes being around a lot of people. I like crowds, but I like crowds where they're movable. Not the type of crowds where you're stuck, you have to stop walking, or you feel like you have to be rushed and walk really fast. I don't like that. And in Japan, there's a ton of that. So it gets really annoying, always having to feel like it's a holiday every day, always having to be fast paced. It's easy to get lost from your group and your friends when you're looking for people, whether it be your student, your boyfriend, whatever. It's just really annoying. It's aggravating at times. So sometimes I wish that I was in an area where you don't have to deal with that. Of course, if you go to the countryside or a residential area like where I live, then sure, I don't have that fast pace, gotta walk really fast, always somebody standing with you at the stoplight type thing like where I live. But again, by the time I get to work, stop away, whatever, then you go back to that super busy, fast-paced type area, which again, I have mixed feelings on it, because part of me, like I said, I like the crowd, but then at the same time, you don't always want to be like where you're shoulder to shoulder with people, where there's no space, where trying to do something as simple as turn around or going the wrong way can potentially get you hit by a bike or make somebody angry because you're disrupting the flow. So it's really annoying. There's things to like about it too. Again, personally, I like being around people, which most people aren't like this. Most people do not like crowds, even if you are a city person, but it's just life in Japan. And again, it's kind of weird because for myself, unlike a lot of people, I'm from a major city, switching between being the second and third biggest city in the US. But with that said, there's nowhere comparable to this. Like, not even in New York. I've stayed in New York, and even there, like, I didn't have that same feeling that I have here in Japan. So Not to mention, I made another video on that, but I'll make a separate video on just pedestrians. I said I was going to do that, but I talked about cyclists. Japanese pedestrians are some of the worst in the world. They are extremely rude, especially their cyclists, so you do not want to be in a really big crowd with them because it's every man for himself. People don't like to wait. They're super selfish. It's very easy to get hit by a bike. I'm probably like the only foreigner here that hasn't been hit yet. Everybody that I talk to has some type of story where they got hit by a bike or they hit somebody else with theirs. But that's another story. So, last but not least, number 20, something else that's difficult for me as a foreigner here in Japan was definitely getting used to not having a one-stop shop mega store to buy everything from. So, again, first world problems, but I'm talking about my own issues as an American. Japan is also a first world country. I think it's really weird that people either don't like the idea of it, or I think more so Japan just doesn't have the space for it. But even in the countryside where there's tons of space, nothing in Japan is like, that. So what I'm getting at is Japan doesn't really have like a super Walmart, super Target type store. There's no one place you can go to buy everything. The closest you can get to that is going to a place like a, Aeon, whatever, but that's kind of cheating because really that's a mall. So of course they have just about everything, but there's not normally, a Aeon right next to where you live. You're going to have to get on the train for most people. I've been blessed and fortunate enough to live literally a couple of blocks away from the mall before. Now that I've moved, I'm a few train stops away from another mall near here. There's actually like 2 or 3 malls near me, but I live pretty much downtown. But that's another story. Speaking in general, but even then, again, it's not like a one-stop shop, and that's massive. That's an entire mall. They don't have like a Walmart. So for example, if you want to get up in the middle of the night, you realize you forgot something, you want to get something before work, nope, you don't have that choice. The only option that you have is there are some 24-hour discount stores, such as Tamare, whatever, I forgot the name of the store, that ghetto grocery store. They're really, really dirty, but their food is really, really cheap, and I think all of their locations are 24 hours, or at least they close at midnight, so that's pretty much the closest that you can get. Them and Don Quixote, which they do sell clothes and groceries, but they don't have a large selection of either, and it's pretty much like a Burlington coat factory type issue going on where the clothes and stuff are just all over the place. There's great finds you can get from that place, and I like both of these stores despite everything I just said. But again, like, there's no real like Walmart equivalent. So this really becomes annoying when it comes to personal items as a girl. For example, I generally cannot buy the exact kind of pads that I want to get unless I go to a pharmacy. I cannot buy the exact hair products that I want unless I go to a pharmacy. Like, I have to go to a specific pharmacy sometimes too. Sometimes not just any, drugstore has it. And on top of that, if that's not enough, same thing goes for clothing. Generally speaking, I don't really care too much about clothes. If it looks cute, I buy it. I don't care about how much stuff costs. I think it's really dumb as an adult, especially for those of you that don't have money. Focusing on brands is stupid when you're grown. You're no longer in school anymore. If the clothes last, the quality is good, it's cheap, you can afford it, it'll, get the job done, buy it by all means. With that said, I'm someone that actually really loved Walmart and Target back when I lived in the US. And while Japan has stores that are close to this, you won't find like a store where there's like a giant section of clothes, giant section of grocery, giant section of school supplies. There's a teacher, oh my god, I missed the school supply section at Walmart. That doesn't exist in Japan. They just don't have it. So I was gonna do a voiceover for this, but I might as well, address what you just saw. Yes, I do look totally different. I changed my hair and everything. I did put on the same hoodie again, but somehow I forgot to actually record my last my last point I wanted to make, number 20, when I initially recorded this video. So I put it off for a while, was lazy, but I finally got dressed, did my makeup, and decided to film it instead of just voice overing it, because I've made several mistakes recently. I don't know what's going on with me. I somehow stopped in the middle of the video because I am a little sick right now, and I was sick at the time that I filmed the beginning of this video. So I wanted to take a break, I think, and I got something to eat and drink, and then I started working on my thumbnail, and then I noticed when I was recording the video, like, oh, I didn't actually finish the video. So that's that. It's done now. So those are my 20 things that I personally find to be the most difficult being here in Japan as a foreigner. It sounds small, like it's not a big deal, but if you're from the US and if you're not stuck in Japan's butt, you probably will agree with me and be like, yeah, like, you know, this is really hard to get used to. So of course things could be worse. There's things that I do like and enjoy here, but I'm not about to do all of that over explaining myself. You get the point. This video is specifically talking about the difficult things. As somebody that grew up, you know, living next to Walmart, it's hard having to get used to going to a grocery store where there's random brands, random items, and you probably cannot buy the same consistent things. For example, if you like Purdue chicken, you know if you go to any major grocery store in the US, you can buy Purdue or Tyson chicken, whatever. Japan is not like that. You go to the grocery store, it's totally random brands. They may or may not have your favorite brands. And brand loyalty doesn't seem to be a big thing here in Japan. People tend to buy whatever the closest store has to them. But that's all for another video. So that's that. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a like. If you live in Japan or have lived here, please tell me something in the comments that you personally found difficult about living here, something that, you know, you missed from your home country that made it hard for your life here in Japan. And yeah, let's have a conversation about that. Otherwise, I would appreciate it if you would also follow me on Instagram and my Twitter account. I also have a Facebook page that you can like, and you can add me on Snapchat as well. The links for everything are down in the description, and I hope you'll check out another video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.